We read about the destruction of Sodom, and Lot had to be saved. And we'll see in a moment, that he was saved was somehow connected to Avram Avinu. But factually, how did Lot end up in Sodom? You understand, Sodom had a certain, like in Manhattan, if you want to move into a building, the co-op board has to accept you. Otherwise, you can't move in. So Lot had to meet a certain financial criteria to be admitted into Sodom. Because if there was any question, he would burden them financially, he's not coming in. It was because of the wealth that he had when Avram said to his nephew, if you go to the right, I will go to the left, or vice versa. So Lot chose to go to Sodom. And as the Torah tells us, that the tents of the shepherds went all the way from a certain location all the way to Sodom, because that was the degree of his wealth. So what caused him to go to Sodom? It revealed who he was, but what allowed him to go to Sodom? Only his wealth. Okay? So he becomes wealthy. The wealth causes the dispute between Roe Lot and Roe Avram. Right, that was the basis for the dispute. Now, we'd mentioned, and the Ohr HaChaim made this point, initially when Hashem had said to Avram Avinu, Lechcha me'artzcha moladetcha beis avicha. When Hashem said, Mi beis avicha, remove yourself from your household, that included Lot. But yet, the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh points out, Lot forced himself on Avram, and he didn't want to cast him away. And only after it says, Lot went with him, Vayikach Avram es Lot. He agreed to take him. But the Nevuah, the prophecy that Avram was supposed to hear from Hashem, did not take place only Achi Hiporet Lot Miito. Only after Lot separated from him, then it was Hashem communicated with Avram about the land, about his children, about all that. So it comes out interesting. If not for the wealth, which caused the dispute between Roy Lot and Roy Avram, between their shepherds, that separation wouldn't have come about easily. Avram was waiting for the moment that Lot would do something, and that would be a legitimate excuse to separate from him. This comes at the wealth that Lot received in Mitzrayim allowed this separation to come about. The circumstance of the dispute, because they were stealing grazing land, that allowed this separation. And then Avram was able to be in a position that Hashem would communicate with him. The Nevuah. Okay? Now, you see, there were so many fruits that were born because of this. Lot was taken captive. And the Torah makes it a point, it alludes to this. Why was Lot taken captive by the four Malachim, by the four kings? Because he was in Sodom. Because Sodom was one of the 5 kingdoms who had gone to war against the 4. And the Torah alludes there. What caused Lot to be taken captive? That he lived in Sodom. Why did he live in Sodom? Because of the wealth. Just tracing the line. Now, Avram now goes to war. Avram had a commitment to Lot. Whatever happens, Achem and Achnu, we're brothers. I will stand by your side. I will come to your aid no matter what. Avram goes to war. He defeats the 4 kings. What is the result of defeating the 4 kings? He's declared Nasi Elokim Atov B'Sochenu. He's declared by the world as the Nasi Elokim, the Prince of God. So because Lot went to Sodom, only that's why he was taken captive. Therefore, Avram was committed to a covenant that he had made with Lot, and therefore he had to save him. Such miracles took place and he defeated the 4 mightiest powers, he was declared by the world as the Nasi Elokim. The Kiddush Hashem that came about as a result of Lot living in Sodom. It's something phenomenal. Okay? What happens after he saves Lot? Initially, when he separated from Avram, the Torah says, Vayiso Mikedem. Lot says, Torah says he traveled Mikedem, to the east. So Rashi cites the Midrash over there. He says, Tavram, I'm not interested in you, and I'm not interested in your God. Kedem is Kadmod Shalodam. I'm not interested in the one who you said is the founder who created the world. I'm not interested. So he goes to Sodom. All these miracles happen to save him. After he's saved, where does Lot go? He goes back to Sodom again. So what does that say about Lot? This man is a bad man. Bad is an understatement of how bad he is. I'll tell you, if Ernie was a Rosh Yeshiva, he would never accept him in his yeshiva. He would never pass the entrance exam or the interview. No way. And Lot goes back to Sodom. This is a confirmation of what Lot is. Now it's going to be destroyed. You know, the man is so evil. He's proven himself to be this evil person. After being exposed, we find that Paro, after seeing 5 miracles, it says, V'yezek Hashem esleif Paro. According to the Rambam, Hashem took away his ability of Bechira. He no longer had free choice. After seeing such miracles, the Makos, how do you not believe in God? He turned his back. Hashem took away his ability of choice. Lot sees miracles. He's saved. Avram goes to war. And he defeats the 4 mightiest powers, which is unheard of in the history of existence. And the man goes back to Sodom. You ever hear such a thing? It's not to be understood. So again, this is a confirmation of who Lot is. Now, Sodom is destroyed. Vayi b'shaches, Perek Yutes, Posek Chavtes, 1929. When Vayi b'shaches Elokim is Ori HaKikor. When Elokim, this is the Midas Adin, Elokim is Midas Adin, the attribute of justice. When Elokim destroyed the cities of that area, Vayiskor Elokim es Avram. Elokim remembered Avram. First of all, what's Elokim? Destruction of Sodom, we understand, is Elokim. But remembering Avram in a positive vein to save Lot, it should say Vayiskor Hashem es Avram. Right? Shiviyut Kevovke, it's Midas Arachmim. Vayishalach es Lot mitoch hafecho, ba'avoch es ha'orim asher yoshem hein Lot. As a result of remembering Avram, Lot was extricated, was sent out of this destruction. When he overturned the cities, which he lived there, that's where he lived. Despite living there, and he deserved to be destroyed, in the schus of Avram, Elokim saved Lot. The destruction was Elokim, and that same Elokim caused that Lot should be sent out because Hashem, Elokim remembered Avram. What does Elokim have to do with Avram? Now, Avram was committed to Lot. As we said, he went to battle, even to the point where after the battle, which he needed unlimited miracles, he was concerned that he depleted all his merits. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Maltira Avram, Schor Harbi Mod. You don't have to worry that your merits were depleted, but just to the contrary, they were increased. And here we're saying, Yizkor Elokim es Avram, so you'd say maybe because he was committed, he made a covenant for him, so that's Vayishale, Vayizkor Elokim es Avram. Because Avram is bound to the covenant to Lot. But you know something? This is already between Hashem. Before they did something wrong, they took him captive. Because they wanted to kill Avram. So due to that, the covenant, he wanted to save Lot. Now, Hashem has passed judgment on Sodom. Lot is no better than the rest of them. Nevertheless, Elokim sent out of Lot because Elokim remembered Avram. What's the Elokim? Now, if you take a look in Rashi, V'yiskor Elokim es Avram, Maus chiroso shel Avram alot, Niska shel Lot Yudea shesori ishtol shel Avram. When Avram went to Egypt, he says, Imido achosiyot. He says, I'm asking you, present yourself as my sister. So I shouldn't be killed. V'shom hashav Omar Avram b'Mitzrayim asor achosi v'lo gilo hadover. Hear this. He could have revealed the truth, and Avram would have been killed, but he did not reveal it. Sheyachos here, because he was chos. He had Rachmanis and Avram. He was concerned for him. Leficha chos HaKadosh Baruch Hu olav. So what are we talking about here? Why was Lot saved? Because you remembered Avram. It has nothing to do with the schus Avram. This is a concept of mida connected mida. We have a principle of measure for measure. As you were chosa on Avram, you had concern and pity for Avram, Hashem will have mercy on you. But what is mida connected mida? Mida connected mida is midas hadin. That's justice. Racham means despite some, mida connected is always that. Hashem, that's akel tomim polo. Hatzur tomim polo. The tzur, his action is perfect. Kel lemuna veinovel. Tzadik v'yosheru. Despite his evil, there's mida connected mida. That's Elokim. That's v'yizkar Elokim es Avram. That's midas hadin. Mida connected mida. That's exact justice. Despite what you deserve, still Hashem can't shortchange you. You deserve that. There's mida connected mida. But something interesting. I pointed out, which is mind-boggling. We read after this story how Lot and his daughters had fled into a cave. And they had found wine in the cave, as Rashi brings the Chazal, because two nations were meant to come from the two daughters of Lot, and he fathered the nations. It came through ancestral union. That's how it came about. But why did Lot's daughters come up with this plan to get their father drunk, that he should procreate with them? So Rashi cites Chazal, because they believed the world came to an end. Avrami, this is important for you. Right? Because he believed the world came to an end. Okay? As a result of that, as a beginning of creation, Cain and Hevel, who did they procreate with? They procreated with their sisters. Each one was born with a twin. Otherwise, how did it begin? He only had one set of parents. So they couldn't marry anybody who was not related to them. So it was incest. So the Chazal tells, because Olam Chesed Yibaneh, because there's only one way to start creation, and that was the only way, so Hashem permitted it. It was permitted. They believed the world came to an end. This cosmic destruction destroyed the world, and therefore, believing that the world was destroyed, you have to start over again. So therefore, they believed, they justified having relations with their fathers, conceiving their fathers. This is Ammon and Moav. Okay? So it seems to be pretty good, right? The story narrative reads straight, but the whole thing is almost like absurd. After all that Avram did for Lot, that his daughters believe that Avram was destroyed. Avram was the so-called hero of heroes. All that Avram did for their father, the wealth, Lot. I mean, you mean to say Lot never shared with his daughters that he had an uncle Avram and how special he was and what he did for the world and so on and so forth. His hospitality, everything. His so-called humble beginnings. If they would have known that they had an uncle Avram, would have they believed the world came to an end? That their father was spared and Avram was not spared? Impossible. You know what the answer is? The man was such an ingrate, he never shared it with his daughters. As a result of that, they believed the world came to an end. Therefore, they justified incest. This is Olam Chesed Yibaneh. We're not finished. The Ramban writes, we find there's a negative commandment, Lo Yovu Ammoni Moavi B'Kal Hashem. Even if an Ammonite or a Moabite converts to be a Jew, he's considered an illegitimate Jew. The male line can never marry into Klal Yisrael. It's like a mamzer. Same thing. Why? Lo Yovu Ammoni Moavi B'Kal Hashem. Because when we were in the desert, when we left Egypt, Lo Kidu Eschem B'Lechem Mayim B'Tzeis Mitzrayim. Because they did not offer their bread and water when we left Egypt. Here we're wandering for 40 years, and we come near them. What do they offer their bread and water? And what do they do? They commission Bilam to curse us. Could you imagine? So the Ramban over there points out, they only exist in the merit of Avram Avinu. All that Avram did for them. And now, how do you not offer your hospitality? Just basic amenity, bread and water. This is a confirmation, the level of ingrates they were. Hashem says, these people will never integrated Klal Yisrael. That's how corrupted they are. And he traces it back to Lot. All that Hashem did for Lot, how do you behave this way? But what was the root of that midah, of that corrupted characteristic? This is Lot himself. Lot himself was an ingrate. This was a manifestation of that trait, of that characteristic. Ingrate. This level of ingrate, lo yov amonim movi b'kal Hashem. No way. They're not going to assimilate and intermingle with Klal Yisrael. But again, to see it. So it's interesting. Even though he was an ingrate, he could have informed. Based on who you are, you know something? He should have informed that Avram, because he has no capacity for appreciation. Look at all Avram did for me. Despite that, he was chosalov. So that, for him, this is a great thing. Somebody else, he didn't inform him. So therefore what? You have to be a bad guy. The answer is, in this area, the reason is all that he did. How could he inform? But Lot has no capacity for gratitude. Despite that, he didn't inform. So just as he was chosav on Avram, Mida Keneged Mida, Hashem was chos on him. That's why it's Elokim, because Mida Keneged Mida is even the attribute of justice says we have to meet measure for measure, and therefore he will be saved.